You followed the script. The world's script. You got the degree. You showed up every day. You did your best. You provided. You kept going even when it was hard. And yet here you are, midlife or beyond, still feeling that lingering, gnawing restlessness. Is this all there is? Maybe you've been successful by every visible measure. A long-standing career, a decent retirement fund, a house, a family, a name built over decades. But underneath the surface, something's off. You find yourself going through the motions, but your spirit feels disconnected. You clock in, but your heart stays home. You finish your to-do list, but your soul still aches. This isn't laziness. It isn't ungratefulness, and it certainly isn't failure. It's a holy stirring, a sacred discomfort that signals you weren't made for survival alone. You were made for purpose. That longing you feel, that whisper in the quiet moments, that's God gently nudging your spirit. He's not scolding you, he's inviting you, not away from work, but into a deeper why behind it. Because you weren't made to just get through the week, collect a paycheck, and wait for weekends. You were made to make a difference, to serve with the wisdom you've earned, the compassion you've grown into, and the faith that's carried you. And that purpose? It's bigger than a job title. It's deeper than a resume. It's the calling God planted in you long before your first job and still alive now. That's what we'll unpack together today, especially if you're over 50, navigating career fatigue, or the quiet ache of wondering if it's too late to begin again. Spoiler alert, it's not. Because this isn't just about finding a job. It's about rediscovering your divine calling. From childhood, many of us were taught a very clear formula. Go to school to get a degree to land, a stable job to retire in comfort. It promised safety, predictability, respectability, but it rarely promised purpose, and rarely peace. This formula, while well-intentioned, became the script for generations. We were told, just follow the plan and everything will work out. For many of us, it did, at least on paper. But while we checked off the boxes of responsibility, something inside quietly faded. Who am I outside of my job? Is what I do what I'm truly called to do? The truth is, society trained us to think of success as something external, a title, a salary bracket, a certain lifestyle. But God designed success to be something internal alignment with who He made us to be. When your identity is tied to your job title, any shift, retirement, redundancy, or even promotion can trigger an identity crisis. That's because we were never meant to define ourselves by what we do, but by who we are in Him. And yet, we chase, we perform, we stay busy, all while the deeper part of us whispers, there has to be more. It's no wonder so many people hit their 50-second and 60-second with questions that feel louder than ever. Why do I feel spiritually dry, even though I've worked so hard? Why does my success feel so hollow? What if I missed the point all along? You haven't missed it. That ache, that unshakable restlessness is not failure. It's a holy reminder, a soul-level invitation to return to what matters most, against a version of success that was never truly yours. It's God reawakening your awareness. It's Him gently showing you that you were never designed to be a cog in a machine. You were created for communion, not just compensation. For calling, not just career. The job mentality taught us to trade time for money. The kingdom mentality invites us to invest time for impact. This isn't about rejecting work, far from it. Work is a gift, a place to serve, to grow, to glorify God. But it's time we stopped viewing work as our worth and started seeing it as a tool to live out our divine calling. Because when we start with calling, not compensation, everything changes. Let's get something clear from the start. This message isn't about quitting your job. It's not about abandoning responsibility, burning bridges, or trading your briefcase for a mission trip. It's about realignment, reframing the way you see work. Because in God's kingdom, the definition of work is far more sacred than society lets on. Work isn't just what you do. It's where you do it, how you do it. And why do you do it? It's more than just getting things done. It's about doing what truly matters. It's not just about being efficient. It's about building something that lasts beyond you. Your job is what you're paid for. Your divine calling is what you were made for. And that calling, it doesn't expire when you hit 50, 60, or even 70. It often becomes clearer in those very seasons. God's plan for your life isn't built on your resume, it's built on your willingness to say yes when He calls. James spent over 3 decades in logistics. By all accounts, he was successful, respected by his peers, good salary, stability, but something started shifting in his heart. I don't want just to manage systems anymore, he told me. I want to mentor. I want to invest in younger men. Share what I've learned, not just about business, but about faith, failure, and family. He didn't quit his job. He didn't uproot his life. But he began living with new intention. He launched a men's Bible study on Thursday nights. He became a spiritual father to younger men in his office. And for the first time in years, he said, I feel fully alive. That's what turns routine into revelation. That's what transforms a career into a calling. You see, God's bigger vision isn't about status. It's about service. It's not about striving. It's about faithful obedience, even in hidden places. Well done, good and faithful servant. God doesn't reward impressive resume. He honors surrendered hearts. So if you're wondering, is what I do really making a difference? Let me encourage you. If it's done in obedience, if it's done with love, and if it's done with God in mind, it absolutely matters. Every email you send, every floor you sweep, every hand you hold, every call you take, when done with intention and surrendered heart, it becomes sacred. This is what we mean by work as worship. You don't need a new title or promotion to be impactful. You need to see your current role through God's eyes. Because when you align your work with His purpose, you shift from clocking in to stepping into destiny. Faithful obedience is often quiet. It's not a stage, not applause, but it's holy. Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men. End of. Even the small, overlooked tasks matter when done with intention and love. So now what? You've recognized the discomfort isn't failure, it's holy. You've seen how God's purpose for your life is far greater than any job title. Now it's time to respond. This is where transformation begins. And it starts not by doing more, but by seeing differently. The world measures work by accomplishments. God measures it by alignment with your purpose. He's not waiting for you to land the perfect job before He uses you. He's waiting for you to offer your whole heart, right where you are. So, how do we shift from labor to legacy? From clocking in to stepping into our divine calling? 1. Recognize the stirring is spiritual. That restlessness you feel, it's not random. It's not burnout from a bad day or a fleeting midlife mood. It's your spirit calling you back to alignment. It's God saying there's more for you and it starts now. Take it seriously. Don't suppress it. Don't medicate it. Don't brush it off. Ask God, what are you trying to awaken in me? Because every holy transformation starts with awareness. 2. Reclaim your identity as a vessel, not just a worker. The world may see you as a title, a task doer, or even past your prime, but heaven sees something else, a vessel, a torchbearer, a legacy maker. Your greatest impact might not come from your career peak, but from the quiet influence you now carry. You're not done. You're being repurposed. Stop asking, what job should I get? Start asking, who needs what I've already lived through? That's how calling takes shape. 3. Start where you are, small, simple, sincere. You don't need a spotlight to make a difference. You don't need applause to reflect His light. You just need to start. Look at your current day. Where can you add spiritual value? Can you speak encouragement over a discouraged coworker? Can you pray for the people you pass by silently each day? Can you bring integrity into a workspace that's forgotten it? What matters isn't the size of your platform, it's the sincerity of your heart. Work becomes worship when it flows from a surrendered heart. Whether you're answering phones, fixing meals, writing emails, or managing teams, if it's done in love and with purpose, it carries eternal weight. This is your turning point. No more waiting for perfect conditions. No more tying your worth to a paycheck. God is already working through your hands when your heart is open to Him. You don't need to escape your job to find your calling. You need to invite God into your job so it becomes your calling. That's when everything changes. Maybe you've been feeling stuck. Maybe you've spent years pouring out and now find yourself running on empty. Maybe you've watched dreams fade, energy shift, and significance feel like it's slipping away. But hear this clearly. You haven't missed your moment. You're not forgotten. You're right on time in God's time. God's timeline is different from the world's place. And in his kingdom, your most impactful years might just be ahead of you. Moses was called after decades in the wilderness. Abraham stepped into his promise when others were slowing down. And you? You're not waiting to begin, you're being prepared to bloom. This season, right now, is not wasted. It's not downtime, it's holy ground. You've lived, learned, led, lost, and endured. And now you carry wisdom the world desperately needs. You've weathered storms, you've prayed through heartache, you've carried burdens no one else saw. And that makes you a vessel, not of perfection, but of power, not of fame, but of faith. So don't shrink back. Don't buy the lie that your value ended with your last promotion or your retirement party. God moves through humble obedience, not polished credentials. And friend, your surrender can begin today, not by chasing a job, but by opening your hands and saying, God, use what I have, use where I am, use who I've become. Because when you do, you'll realize it's been there all along. Not lost, not gone, just waiting for your yes. That ache you've carried, that longing for more, it's not foolish, it's not selfish, it's divine. You were created for more than going through the motion. You were made to bring light, truth, encouragement, and love. And now, it's time to walk in that. No matter your past, no matter your age, no matter your title, you are not finished. You are just beginning again. This time with clarity, with conviction, with purpose. Because when you live from your purpose, even ordinary work becomes extraordinary worship.